fellow bookworms and film fans, and Happy New Year! Welcome to the first episode of this year's Contented Narrative. We are looking at If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura. I'm sorry, I pretty much butchered that surname, I do apologise. So this book was actually recommended to me by my sister Jessica, and honestly it was such a sweet, lovely little book. I even did it as a book club book for the Leeds book club that I run last year as well, because it was just so lovely. So basically the premise is you're gonna die tomorrow, okay, but the devil comes up to you and he says, right, okay, I can give you one extra day of life, but for that something is going to have to vanish from your world. And you know, I think the first thing they pick is a mobile phone. They're like, right, get rid of mobile phones, I'm not bothered anymore, you know, don't want them. And everybody else does, like, carries on their life as if they've never had a mobile phone, as if they don't know what it is. Only the person that's wished for that thing to disappear understands what it was like before and what it is like now. And I mean, look at that little kitten on the front. It's such a fantastic book because it makes you really think as to what would you give up for an extra day of life? Like, what would you? If the devil came up to you and said, right, you've got to get rid of all movies, would you do it? If they said, oh, you've got to get rid of all chocolate, would you do it? It's playing with that fact that as a race, as a human race, we are very obsessed with our own mortality. I mean, look at, you know, vampires are absolutely adored in modern culture because of the fact that, you know, they live forever. But we are obsessed with our own mortality, and this is just such a fantastic way of putting it. And it puts you in a position as well, as when you're reading it, you would turn around, you might not necessarily agree with what this person decides to give up for an extra day of life, but you know, if you were put in that position, would you give it up? So it's looking at that, and it's also, I mean, it's so brilliantly written. It's honestly, I mean, as I said, Jessica recommended this to me and I thought, all right, I'll give it a go. And I bought this and The Power, which was obviously last week's episode, at the same time. And honestly, my sister's book recommendations, both of them are fantastic. And I just literally, as soon as I started reading it, I was like, this has to be the book club book, because I've got to spread this around. Because honestly, if you haven't read it already, you need to, like, you genuinely do. I would recommend going out and buying it straight away, either on Kindle, paperback, you know, just getting it and reading it, or borrowing it from a library as well, because that's what one of my friends, Marina, she did. She borrowed hers from the library. But it's such, I mean, it's such a brilliant little idea as well. It's one that when you read it, you're like, okay, then what would you give up for an extra day? And then when you actually read it and you see the reasoning and you see what the world is like after this thing has disappeared, but this guy has an extra day of life, and it's just, you think, how far will he go? How many days will he give up? How many things will he give up to get extra days? Like, could he keep this up forever? What would be left? And honestly, I would read this again. It's not a long book. It's about 200 pages. And honestly, I reckon even if you're not an avid reader, I think you could probably get this done in a day, because you wouldn't be able to put it down, just like I couldn't put it down, honestly. So please go out and get it. It gets a 5 out of 5 from me. It gets a 4 out of 5 from me. And again, because the ending, I know I said this with Power last week, it seems really weird that I've got such this thing on endings, but I feel like a good book ends it. And this book, it does have a good ending, it does, but it's not a satisfying ending for me. And honestly, it's just, what I wanted to happen didn't happen, and I kind of felt like, oh, but obviously that's not what the author was ever going to go for. So it gets a 4 out of 5 from me, but it's not because it's not a good ending, it's not because it's not a good book, it's because it didn't satisfy what I wanted the ending to be. And I think sometimes I'm their harshest critic, so sorry about that. But go out and get it, honestly, go out and read it, and leave it below in the comments if you've enjoyed it and everything like that. So what I would say is, obviously, thank you so much for your continued support, especially going into the new year now. If there's any book to film adaptations you'd like me to do, any book reviews you'd like me to do, leave it below in the comments. You can join my Contented Narrative Facebook page. You can follow me on Instagram. But thank you so much, guys. And remember, Always keep it contento.